Good morning, colleagues, administrators, instructors, and key personnel. I want to thank CHED's management for this invitation, especially Dr. Leonida Sigua Kalagi, CHEDRO 3 Regional Director, for her endorsement and trust. We're coming up to the third year of this pandemic. The theme of unity in resiliency and audacity is very appropriate and still applicable moving forward. Resiliency is our ability to bounce back from difficulties. In Kapampangan, the word Tetagan also means toughness, as its root word is common in Filipino, tatag. Audacity is about boldness, the true Kapampangan equivalent of Tepangan. It's about doing new things, taking risks, and accepting the difficulties of those decisions. It is about embracing change for the sake of your people and your students. Now, there's this old joke about a pious man. A flood forced him to sit on the roof of his house, and he prayed to God to save him. A banca came over and offered him a ride. He refused, saying, "God will save me." Later, a Coast Guard boat arrived and he refused again. "God will save me," he said. And finally, a helicopter dropped him a rope ladder and he still refused. And so that pious man died and met God. He asked God, "Why did you not answer my prayers?" And God replied, "What do you mean? I sent you a banca, a boat, and a helicopter." I'm sure you're now thinking, God helps those that help themselves. But sometimes we are too close to the problem that we forget to help ourselves. When the flood waters of COVID-19 came upon us, many of us prayed for salvation, and many more implored the Lord to return to pre-pandemic times so that they could go back to teaching in front of a class. For us to be resilient and audacious, the late Admiral James Stockdale suggested that we must confront the brutal facts of our current reality, whatever they may be. When we accept those brutal facts, we act on them with resolve, using any tactic within our control, and any uncontrollable factors we try to minimize. Indian author Arundhati Roy wrote a very timely article in April 2020 called "COVID-19 is a Portal." Here's the most crucial quote from the article. "Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. Therefore, as far back as the beginning of the pandemic, our first brutal fact is this: we are not going back to full face-to-face classroom mode." Let me repeat that. We are not going back to full face-to-face classroom mode. That fact is very difficult to swallow. Not speaking in front of a classroom is beyond the comfort zone for our career instructors. And so many have prayed for a miracle to end the pandemic before the next semester. But just like Admiral Stockdale endured 8 years as a prisoner of war, the pandemic is still with us after 4 semesters so far. CHED Chairman Popoy de Vera provided an appropriate approach early on. He suggested scenario planning for flexible learning. At Holy Angel University, that is what we did. We came up with 5 viability scenarios and 6 learning modality scenarios. Then we went through each scenario by facing related brutal facts. And you'll find this very common. Fact number 1, insufficient student devices. Number 2, unstable internet. Number 3, expensive internet data. I'm sure your institutions recognize these environmental factors immediately. If you recall, there were so many free international webinars online. You can tell who the Filipino teachers were because they posted the questions about dealing with poor devices and unstable or expensive internet services. We also went through the scenarios with our commitments. First, our quality mantra is, we are all about students. And secondly, we have committed over the past years that no student is left behind. We quickly surveyed our students. Then we provided devices to the 4% that had inadequate devices. And we started accepting donations for mobile data loads. The most critical component of our scenario planning was to build a new way for our students to participate in learning. And this is how we chose the fully online modality and scenario. I'm only summarizing what we did, but our choices were audacious. And here are 2 of our actions. First, we abandoned short-term lesson planning. Instead, we developed our courses 1 semester or 1 year in advance. During the long summer of 2020, many course instructors became course developers. They built learning modules and authentic assessments and deposited them into learning management system courses called blueprints. Then we distributed the blueprints consistently to several sections. Now, why did we do this? Initially, for uniform and consistent delivery of learning content. But more importantly, so that the instructor can spend less time on lesson planning and more time on engaging with the students. The most audacious move we made was to essentially outlaw lectures. The traditional classroom environment was one-way teacher-to-student communication. We wanted to highlight what our students liked about their teachers, their conscience, and their compassion. We also had to change the vocabulary. Instead of online classes, we called them online meetings. Of course, that confused the new students and older instructors. We spent a lot of time explaining that we didn't have classes because we didn't have lectures. The purpose of online meetings were to socialize, to address mental health issues, and to clarify complex topics. So we have been doing this quietly and without branding in the past 2 years. If someone asks what we call our unique modality, we simply answer Holy Angel University Online Learning. The results of these choices were both negative and positive. We started training 600 or so instructors in April 2020, a handful of them still praying for a return to the other side of the portal. We included mental health sessions called Kamustahan. There were growing pains by imposing this new modality, and we lost a few instructors along the way. On the positive side, both students and teachers gained control of learning and teaching. Students could see topics weeks in advance. They learned time management and resiliency. By the second semester, teachers and students had a rhythm and stride. By the third semester, students were reading ahead. Confusion and apprehension turned into confidence. Why have I shared our little secrets about HAU Online Learning? Because they're about to change. We are about to face new brutal facts and realities, and we are still innovating. The pandemic will end sooner or later, but will our current practices still apply? My predecessor, the esteemed late Dr. Luis Maria R. Calingo, supported everything in our students' service. When we reached the second semester of 2020-2021, and our teachers and students were in their stride, he did not want to coin the overused term, the new normal. He appropriately called it the now normal. Why? Because we have gone through a period of instability to a period of temporary stability. It is not new, just like New York and New Manila are no longer new, but it is happening now. This now normal period of stability is about to end, which brings me to another fact we must all face. If you recall, the first brutal fact was we are not going back to full face-to-face classroom mode. And here is the next brutal reality. While many students want to go back to the classroom, many students do not want to go back to full face-to-face classroom mode. There should be an online or offline component. In my opinion, blended or hybrid is our only option post-pandemic. Blended learning is our collective next normal. We are about to move from a period of stability to another round of instability, assuming what we know about the pandemic is inevitable. But since we do not know for sure when the pandemic ends, we should continuously run scenarios. CHED has provided some guidelines for limited face-to-face learning. However, it is up to us, the HEIs, to determine how our campuses will open, given our unique situations, environments, teachers, and students. How many scenarios are you looking for in your next normal? It seems that resiliency and audacity will continue to be in our toolboxes. Our plans must be responsive and flexible, and we should have the resolve to take calculated risks, all for the benefit of students and teachers. I have not even discussed the viability of our private institutions with the continuing threats from many fronts. I have focused on transforming our teaching and learning so that by our audacity and resolve, our students will value our readiness and return when they can afford to. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and I wish you all good health and resiliency. At the end of all our talks here at Holy Angel University, we say, Laus Deo Semper, which means praise God always.